Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. And I think I was just mentioning to Drew, there wasn't a whole lot of news this week, but then you corrected me on that. In fact, you broke a story Thursday of last week, right?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good story that all of our listeners will love to hear, which is that Chris Sanders is back at DreamWorks Animation with a brand new movie called The Wild Robot. Yeah, hugely exciting news.
That is. I mean, again, it's so funny. Just the other day, I was thinking I have a run of almost all of Chris Sanders' sketchbooks from Comic-Con. And again, I was thinking, I need to get the most recent one. But then I thought, why haven't we heard from Chris Sanders in a while? So this is great news. Do we know anything about The Wild Robot? Or?
Yeah, of course. It is a movie based on a New York Times bestselling book by Peter Brown. Mm-hmm. And it follows a robot called Rosm 7134, Roz for short, a futuristic robot that washes ashore on a deserted island. According to the official synopsis, it is a tale of survival and discovery that begins when she becomes the unexpected protector to an orphaned gosling, which she names Bright Bill. Together, they struggle to survive the harsh environment, but only succeed with the help of a close-knit group of animal misfits who become first friends and then family. Ultimately, Roz and company save the island from a robotic invasion by Roz's manufacturer looking to bring her back to civilization by any means necessary.
Wow, that's a great story.
It is a great story, and it's got a great voice cast, which I was not allowed to announce during this, but I will say that outstanding voice cast, who they have cast as Roz, as well as some of the animals, is really, really special. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to say this makes me so happy because, again, I've been watching, for example, the construction of Epic Universe in Florida, and they've really gone to town on the How to Train Your Dragon area of that park. I mean, that just, there's the stuff. Everything else is bare buildings, but, they've got the Viking totems and the longboats being built, and it looks amazing. So it's just, it's so nice to hear Chris Sanders is coming back to DreamWorks. That's great news. Wow.
And wouldn't you know that the book is the first in a series of 3 books. So should the movie be a success, we might see more.
There we go. All right.
Yes.
And speaking of seeing, well, I don't know if we're going to see more of this. I mean, did you catch the thing earlier this morning? And when I say early, I mean early, because it was 9:30 a.m. my time, so it would have been 6:30 your time. But the Toy Story Funday football thing, I don't even know how to describe what the Walt Disney Company and ESPN did this time around. It was basically an animated version of a real football game that was held at Wembley Stadium in London between the Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Only the version that they broadcast on live on Disney Plus was animated and set in Andy's bedroom. Like, yes, that Andy from the Toy Story films. Did you get to see any of that today? Or
I saw TJ posting some bits of it on Pixar Post's social media channels, because I was not up at 6:30 today. But it looked kind of cool, but also kind of nightmarish.
You
Yeah.
hit the Venn diagram in one, Drew. and we'll talk at length about this in the second half of today's show. But before we get to that, Drew's going to talk about at his time at Fantastic Fest, this past weekend. And we're going to do that as part of the news portion of this week's Fine Tuning. And speaking of which, news portion of today's show is brought to you by Fine Tuning's new sponsor, which is Touring Plan's own travel agency. So if you're thinking about heading down to Walt Disney World in the not so distant future, these obviously knowledgeable folks can help you plan your dream vacation. They'll even toss in a free subscription to the Touring Plans. So again, if you're planning to go to Central Florida sometime soon, please check them out at touringplans.com/travel. Fantastic Fest. You grew up in Austin, right?
Yes, I did. I was born in Austin many, many moons ago. And yeah, it's always really fun to go back. Fantastic Fest, I think, is one of the best film festivals in the world, and also one of the kind of most unsung. It's always a pleasure to get to go back every year. Yeah, this year was no different. Had an absolute ball, saw some great movies, and now I'm back, Jim, fighting the good fight.
Well, yeah. Now, toward that end, I mean, again, this is a genre-based festival. They do horror, science fiction, fantasy, action, Asian, and it's the Fantastic Fest has existed since March of 2005, and everything got disrupted during the pandemic. How many of the Fantastic Fest have you done previously?
This is maybe my third or fourth. I went before the pandemic, obviously, and then last year I was a juror for the emerging talent, which was really, really fun. I loved that. And, they have a strong history with animation. I think Frankenweenie premiered there.
It did.
It's a lot of fun. Obviously the big one this year was the new Toxic Avenger. Yes, Jim, they remade the Toxic Avenger with a slightly more budget and movie stars. So, yeah.
Half the charm of Toxie is he barely, those films are made for pocket change, but that's their charm. Yes. Now, again, this was at the Alamo Drafthouse, the South Lamar.
Yes, the South Lamar location. Have you ever been to South by Southwest? It's one of the theaters they used.
Oh, okay.
What was interesting was that this year they had remodeled the theaters. They had taken out the benches and that kind of step down and put in new seats that recline, which is amazing. But they lost 150 seats from the overall theater. Oh. So last minute they built a theater with about 40 seats in the lobby. When you used to be able to wait for your movie in air conditioning, that was no more, Jim. Instead, you were standing out in the over 100-degree heat, waiting for your movie to get called. It was not great. I fully expect things to be more on their feet next year. As far as I know, this thing was completed last week. So there was a lot of, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I still had a great time. And, I'm fully expecting next year to be a little bit more streamlined.
Okay. But again, if you think back to the original Alamo Drafthouse, the one that opened in 97 on Colorado Street, wasn't that the one where you sat on hay bales?
I remember that theater, and I remember kind of,
really?
at the time you had to kind of cajole yourself to get in. And what's interesting too, I think in 99, I was at South by Southwest and they did a trauma retrospective as part of South by Southwest, and all the movies were in that original Drafthouse, which, as Jim is alluding to, was a dive. But absolutely the most charming, wonderful place to see a movie.
That would have been a great place to especially see a series of trauma films. So
yes, absolutely. Yes.
But again, that all I've heard from friends who, and again, I never got to the original Drafthouse, but they always, it was one of these things where it's like charm meets fire trap.
Absolutely. I mean, right off of 6th Street, I'm sure the building was constantly in threat of a drunk driver just plowing into it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was a very charming space. And, when they moved into the Ritz up the street, that was actually on 6th. That was a lot of fun. And now that is no longer a thing either. I drove by at this time and it's like a comedy place or something. It was one of the casualties of the COVID-19 closures, but hey, Fantastic Fest, it's going strong, and that's what's important.
8 days. Did you go for the full 8, or did you just ninja in, ninja out?
No, I was just, I was there from Thursday to Sunday, so I saw the first secret screening, which was Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, which was great. got to see a few great films, and then, came back. Jim, your friend, Robert Kennedy Jr. was on my flight home, which,
Okay. And you didn't open the door for him at 31?
Yeah, I farted on him as I walked past. So yeah.
Glad to have you back from Austin. And again, I love that you broke the story about Wild Robot earlier this week, but have to ask.
Did you like the interview I did with Dave?
Yeah. It's so funny. My ex just reached out to me about, I have to get Dave to sign the revised Oswald book that he did, the second version when they found the other ones. But that sort of, it's like, oh, you need to get a hold of Bossert and you need to get this book signed for me. So it's like, but no, you did a great job. You guys were a little bit all over the map, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Listen, it was just a couple of guys hanging out.
There you go.
Talking about Nightmare Before Christmas. What's better than that?
This is true. By the way, did you get a copy of his book? Or
I haven't gotten a copy of the book. He has no idea who his publicist is, so I have to figure out. If you know who to bother, Jim, let me know, and I will.
Okay, will do. Okay, in the past week, we had a couple of interesting trailers drop. First and foremost, this one for Pencils versus Pixels, the film coming from Strike Back Studios. Did you know this was in the works?
I didn't, not until it was done, and we've been reached out to about this. We might have some folks.
Yeah,
from it
no.
episode.
I have been waiting for a documentary on this topic since November of 1995 when the first Toy Story arrived in theaters. This is the logline, folks. Pencils versus Pixels is a celebration of the unique magic of 2D hand-drawn animation and an exploration of how the Disney Renaissance of the late 1980s and early 1990s led to an animation boom that was quickly upended by a computer animation revolution that followed. And just from the trailer alone, narrated by Ming-Na Wen, and we have appearances by Glenn Keane, Seth MacFarlane, Jorge Gutierrez. But again, this topic, somebody finally wading in to that moment where the world changed. So is this thing being released theatrically at all?
I think it's both.
Okay, so November 7th. Can't promise anything here, folks. We did get reached out to by the publicist, and there's a number of folks they were offering up that, frankly, Drew and I would love to talk to. So
yes, we will do at least one interview with someone from this. Yeah, it looks really interesting. I think it's kind of hard to market it because obviously you can't use any Disney imagery in the promotional materials. But this thing is firmly rooted in the Disney Renaissance through the kind of revolution.
And I love that. I love that the fact that at the time, if you think about it, Lion King opened summer of 94, biggest success ever for the company. But at the same time, now I'm blanking the name of the documentary with it, narrated by Don Hahn, where they're at the party for the celebration for the Lion King. And he's talking about, this is when the wheels are coming off. Which one is that?
Waking Sleeping Beauty.
Okay. This is coming at it from, the artists that were in that moment that suddenly saw their world change. And in fact, for me, again, we were just talking about November of 1995, again, with the original Toy Story first arrived in theaters, but equally significant, at least as far as I'm concerned. Do you remember the Treehouse of Horror for that year? This would have been October 29th. It was the sixth Treehouse of Horror, but this is the one that had the Homer cubed story.
Yes.
Where they did
that was such a big deal.
Totally. In fact, Pacific Data Image did the animation of the 3D Homer walking through the landscape. In fact, you think about it, this thing riffed on Tron. It made fun of the CG cliches of the time. I think at one point Homer looks down into a pool of water with waves and fish and that sort of thing. And, there's a line he says, to the effect of, man, this place looks expensive. I feel like I'm wasting a fortune just standing here. And just to sort of underline, circle, and indent here, folks, that was why, at least at that time, nobody thought that there'd ever be a successful CG film because they were just so expensive to make. Toy Story comes out 3 weeks later, costs $30 million to make at the time, makes $192 million just in North America, an additional 181 overseas, worldwide box office of $374 million. And what Toy Story earned changed Hollywood forever. By the way, DreamWorks, circling back to, what Drew was talking about at the top of today's show, DreamWorks actually buys PDI in 2000, but prior to that, they were sort of a contractor, right?
Yeah, they were a vendor.
DreamWorks.
Yeah.
There we go.
And at the same time, they were doing Waldo, around that same time for Muppets 3D and also 3D. On the Jim Henson show, the Jim Henson Hour.
They were.
Yeah. They were a great studio. It was sort of sad to see them get gobbled up by DreamWorks because they did such great work.
I just bought a copy of, it was called Cinemagic by Starlog. And it's literally summer of 86 issue. So I promised her I'll get you a copy of this because I know you're working on your 80s, 90s Disney thing. There's an 11-page feature on the making of Captain EO. In the middle of this issue is also a story about what's going on in computer animation in 1986, where the height of what was going on was the adventures of Andre and Wally B.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I miss Cinemagic so much. And I remember they did a special issue on Batman the Animated Series. That was like my Bible as a kid. I mean, I would go back and forth through that thing. Speaking of Batman the Animated Series, did you see that Mask of the Phantasm has been released in 4K?
I was kind of surprised to see that. But yes, again, I have my shopping list this week. And for example, I have been to my multiple Targets looking for, Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken because I wanted to buy a physical copy as opposed to, hopping on Amazon. And it just, I can't find one.
They're actually getting rid of their physical media sections in many stores. I think that the vinyl section is probably safe just because of how amazingly that's sort of been, the resurgence of that has been. But yeah, all the DVDs and Blu-rays are going to be gone from most Target stores.
That would explain, literally this week, all right, in our store. And I thought, okay, so that they're moving it. They're no longer here, but I will come back and find where they've been moved to. And it's like,
did you talk about last week? Maybe it was this week, actually, that the news dropped that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is getting the Criterion treatment in December.
No.
Yeah.
It's a moral imperative to buy physical media, especially now that Target's tearing out the section. But, speaking of, we were just talking about Amazon, and I just ordered my copy off of Amazon of Disney A to Z, the 6th edition of the official encyclopedia, and I am old enough to remember the 1st edition. But what kills me
Dave
is...
Did Dave Smith come back from the grave? How is this, what is this?
Well, no. In fact, they explained this in the very back page that Disney legend Dave Smith, 1940 to 2019, founded the archive, blah, blah, blah. Steve Vagnini has basically taken over for Dave and is keeping this book alive. But I have to tell you, if back in the 80s and the 90s, especially, for example, after the Sherry Bobbins episode aired on The Simpsons, to think that one day I would be able to open the official Disney encyclopedia and go to page 798 of this 1,010-page book and go to Simpsons, with the purchase of 21st Century Fox in 2019, Disney acquired the long-range animated sitcom created by Matt Groening, which first aired on Fox in 1989. And by the way, how did The Simpsons meet the Bocellis in Feliz Navidad get by you and me in December of last year?
Is that one of the shorts?
That's one of the shorts, December 15th, 2022. And somehow we missed that, Drew.
That cover of that Disney A to Z is so bad. Holy
I know. They look, they're...
The Disney 100 branding, I think I would rather watch a dog drag its butt across the carpet. I mean, it's so bad, those silver silhouettes. Oh.
Okay. All right. Now we're about to actually move to a certain issue, but thank you for opening the door here.
Okay.
Because what's lovely about doing a show with Drew Taylor is that there are things that Drew knows, and then there are things that Drew can talk about in public.
Yes.
Now, take for example, we're Disney 100's kind of in the review now, right? We're
Well, I mean, there are some that would say that Wish is maybe the culmination of the Disneyland
there we go.
Once Upon a Studio. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to get to that in a sec.
Okay.
But are you now in a position where you can share? You heard about how Bob Iger felt about what was done for Disney 100? Or do we have to
I think
wait
he was
another 5 years?
what I had heard was that he was not very happy. In fact, there was more kind of filigree prepared for the theme parks and whatnot. And supposedly when he got back and he walked through and he just said, "What is this? Stop it immediately." He hated that kind of like cheap, like brushed metal look, which is just so clearly like bad plastic. Although I saw that those horrible statues are sticking around and getting reprogrammed with new phrases or something at Walt Disney World.
Yes, I mean, I saw pretty much the same thing you saw, kind of the effect of them taking the Disney 100 icon off the front and then sort of, I don't know if they changed them from silver to gold, but either way, it's like, yeah, they were around for a while.
Yeah, I think that there are good things that came out of the Disney 100, but I think as a cross-company, synergistic kind of event that it pretty much fell on its face. I don't know how you feel, Jim.
Well, everything I've heard from speaking with folks who work the PR side of the street with Disney, they immediately pivot to the pandemic and basically say, look, there was a plan for Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary and there was a plan for Disney's 100. And both of them were 5 to 7 years in the making and design. But then, what happened to supply channels, what happened to staffing, both of those, deeply planned projects got derailed by the pandemic. And it just sort of like, it's sad, it's tough, but it is what it is. To circle back to what you were just saying a moment ago about, of course, Disney Wish, which is coming out in theaters November 22nd. And then, of course, what you were just talking about with Once Upon a Studio. And again, that's October 15th on ABC, right? That it drops there before theatrical.
No, it's not on Wish.
It's not on Wish now.
No.
Oh, what
I don't know if that's
there?
news or not, but yeah,
wow.
It's not. There is a plan to go wider with the short after the debut on ABC, but at home.
Okay, this is news. Holy cow! All right, yeah, that's good. I was actually looking forward to seeing this thing in a theater.
I agree, and I think it's a perfect companion to Wish. Actually, I mean, she's the character. I forget what her name is, but she's in the short. Like,
oh, okay,
yeah, I don't know if that's God. I'm just saying a lot of things I shouldn't be saying, but yeah, she's in the short.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good fit to me. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the thinking is. There is a full talk about cross-company platforms. From what I understand from animation, they are super happy with how the studio is treating the short and the support that is going on behind it. So I would just say it's coming, and everyone that listens to this podcast, whether or not they have linear television or streaming or whatever, will see this short this month at some point. So just take heart. Yeah.
All right. Well, now to pivot to Disney Wish. And again, we got our teaser trailer. We now have our first official trailer. It's that line, Drew. In the middle of the trailer is a line to the effect of, comes a story a century in the making. And again, like I said, there were things Drew knows, and then there are things that Drew can talk about. And you're still on embargo on a lot of stuff in regard to
I am,
right?
But yeah, I can talk broadly about it.
Okay.
I mean, I think that what that means, and people have written about this already, that there's kind of like Easter eggs and things. And there's even a group of characters that are kind of like surrogates for the Seven Dwarfs, which I think they released a photo of her kind of friends.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of that. It's not going to be like, I mean, there will be Easter eggs and hidden shout outs and things like that, but that's the kind of like reinterpretation of Disney mythology that you'll see in Wish. But I thought that new trailer was great.
No, I thought they did a great job, but more to the point, Disney evidently is really, really happy with what happened when it dropped online Wednesday this past week. It surpassed the viewing that Frozen 2's trailer got. What is it? 66.5 million views across all social platforms, including 29 million views on TikTok. And
wow, take that, strange world. The movies that have been released since Frozen.
Yeah,
it's like, come on, guys.
Right.
I love that they sent that to The Hollywood Reporter too. Like it was this big scoop. It's like Disney trailer does well, says Disney.
I know. But at the same time, face it, as somebody who we're covering animation, and just, for example, the day we're recording the show, Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, is number one at the box office, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, this is the third animated film in all of 2023 to open at number one. And before that was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and then, of course, the Super Mario Brothers movie. This is good news for people who work in animation, right? Especially with the end of...
I mean, they've already announced the third movie that'll be out in 2026. Families love it. I've never seen a second of Paw Patrol, but you know what?
Even with Nova, you don't,
She's more of a bluey girl.
Oh,
Jim,
well, there
so,
we go. An Australian wren shark. I get it. My mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. That's going to do it for the news portion of this week. We're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we're going to take a look at that Toy Story Funday football thing that happened earlier today. But,
don't threaten me with a good time, Jim.
But first, this.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
And we're back. We were just talking about the Disney A to Z, the 6th edition from Disney Editions. But again, that's kind of the massaged, carefully edited Disney history. If on the other hand, you want the real unvarnished warts and all history, this book actually got by me early this year. It was published in March of this year from Lancers Press. But this is the latest Floyd Norman. How the Grouch Stole Disney. Welcome to the Tragic Kingdom.
Does he still work for Disney? How is he putting this out?
So no, this is the beauty part. Floyd is now 88 and basically retired. And so I think what you'll especially enjoy about this book, Drew, is these are all of the mean Michael Eisner cartoons that he held back. I mean, you've seen some of these before, but on the other hand, for example, Floyd has a section in here, there's 5 or 6 different cartoons about Disney dealing with the fact that they made, Tarzan in 1998 and conveniently forgot to put any African American people in a film set in Africa. And of course, only Floyd can sort of weigh in on that issue, or for that matter, I mean, he put you right in the middle of the battle with Disney and Pixar. And what's especially interesting about this book, it's Eisner choosing his successor. And there's some amazing, there's a great gag in this book where it's suddenly Young Frankenstein, where Eisner is turning to Bob Iger and said, "So Igor, get over here." It's like, it's not Igor, it's Igor. Well, they told him it was Igor. Well, they were wrong then, weren't they? Floyd is a legitimate Disney legend for a reason, but what's also great about Floyd is Floyd tells the truth. So if you want to get a truthful, funny take on what Disney was like the 80s and the 90s and into a little bit of the 2000s, pick up a copy of How the Grouch Stole Disney.
Jim, while we're talking about books, I got a book to recommend as well to everybody, which is called Opposable Thumbs, How Siskel and Ebert Changed Movies Forever. It is out at the end of the month by J.T. Putnam Sons. It is excellent, and it has some great Disney history, actually, in terms of when they went over to Buena Vista Television. That is when it really became Siskel and Ebert in, I think, 86. And including a very fun anecdote about Katzenberg actually calling their office and saying, can they be nicer to our movies? Which they had promptly ignored. But it is actually a wonderful book.
You know, it's so interesting you bring up Siskel and Ebert, because I was just listening to the most recent You Must Remember This, and it's actually about Crash, the Cronenberg film, and the host actually talks about this was one of the most brutal fights that Siskel and Ebert had ever had on air. The whole notion of they really went at each other about that movie. That's cool. When again is
it's out on October 24th. It is written by my buddy Matt Singer, who does an absolutely wonderful job of talking to so many people, you know, digging into the archives. You know, over the pandemic, my wife and I watched so many episodes on YouTube because there's no way of reproducing them because of the rights to all of those clips, which at the time was a real feat to get those clips. In fact, in the early versions of the show, they had to actually write down what clips they wanted. They would actually print or whatever and get these exclusive clips, which you could only see on their show, which was a big draw at the time just to see any bit of movie. But yeah, it's a really fascinating history of the show and of them as people. Just lovely. Yeah. I miss them both terribly. So,
same thing here. I mean, you know, and I think it speaks volumes. I mean, also it's something of the time when you think about how huge they were. It's ironic to live in a Rotten Tomatoes age where how many nobodies vote and determine what film's fate is at the box office were those two.
Yeah, and also obviously watching the specials they did from Disney MGM Studios were always so much fun. I think they did the Oscar show.
They did.
Always. And speaking of fights, there was one of those Oscar shows where Siskel revealed the ending of The Crying Game. Do you remember this? And Ebert just came after him. It was so great.
Oh no! Oh, all right. Please. Okay. I'm going to go, as soon as we finish here today, order a copy of Matt's book. And again, one more time with the title.
Opposable Thumbs.
Opposable Thumbs. Oh, yes. Even a great title. Oh,
yes,
cool.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now to pivot to talking about Toy Story Funday football. To frame going into this, what's kind of intriguing about this is that NFL viewership, Drew, has been declining for a number of years now. I mean, for example, just the past year, 2022, it slipped by 3%. You know, it went from 17.1 million viewers to 16.7 million viewers. And the other thing that, to be frank, is concerning people in broadcasting and also, to be honest, the people who buy ad time on football broadcasts is the average age of your average American viewing football at home is 50. And in the world of advertising, that is not really a desirable demographic. I'm 64, Drew. And, you know, that in the eyes of Madison Avenue, I am a life support system for a wallet. And they're more interested in what are you buying for your 30-year-old daughter? That intrigues me. Whereas you, the 64-year-old, I don't care about you. And again, the thing with the 50-year-old, you know, average age of a football, you know, viewer, it's like, that's not good. The NFL decided to do about 10 years ago to deal with this issue. They decided, okay, let's explore the idea of increasing our audience internationally. So that's when they launched the NFL International Games, which for 10 years now, they've been doing football games over in London. And then, but there was also a concerted effort to go after a younger audience, sort of tying into Disney's infamous cradle to grave strategy. And this entire project, the Toy Story Funday football, came out of the Innovation Strategy Office at ESPN. They've been exploring alternate telecasts to key events. The whole conceit of this is that it's the game, the very same game that's being played live in Wembley Stadium in London, again, as part of the NFL's international series. The game is also being played at the same time in Andy's room from the Toy Story films, with each of the Falcon and Jaguar players that are on the field being having an animated representation. But again, it's in the room. So, for example, the goalposts are represented by alphabet blocks. You know, one is piled up So it says GOAL, and then the other opposing one is POST. And everything in this thing is animated. For example, the two play-by-play folks, Booker McFarland and Drew Carter. In fact, what's kind of interesting, if you go online now, you can see the motion capture setup they did to, as they're commenting on the game, it's them in real time being created as action figures. In fact, also Pepper Pursley, she's from ESPN's kid side. She's a young sports reporter. They had her down on the field, but again, they were doing color on the broadcast, again, as an action figure. And what did you get to see of the stuff that you were mentioning that folks over at Pixar Place, that they were showing?
Yeah, they were showing basically, it was TJ over at Pixar Post had some videos up on social media. The kind of real-time stuff looked interesting. I was more into the details of Andy's room. There's this great kind of helmet with the Pixar ball on it. But I wanted to say, Jim, that, this is not a new concept, that since 2021, there have been NFL games that have been simulcast on Nickelodeon that incorporate SpongeBob material as well as Nickelodeon IP, Loud House stuff. And that this year, actually, this upcoming year, that CBS Sports and Nickelodeon are teaming for the first ever Super Bowl simulcast on Nickelodeon, which again will have exclusive SpongeBob content. They're calling it, I think, the Slime Bowl or something. This is not a unique to Disney idea. I think Disney probably did it better than anybody because this animation is very, very cool. But that what you're talking about, this kind of cradle to the grave idea with the NFL is something that they're really embracing. I'm sure that the NFL won't be able to charge as much for these games if there aren't the kind of viewers that they need.
But again, the problem is that it's a live football game. So, for example, there are flags on the play. So when the action would stop, what would be interesting is you'd see them sort of reach into a pile of especially created for this event, pieces of animation that they could throw up on screen. Now, some of it was stuff like trivia. What was interesting is they toggled back and forth between NFL trivia, which field is wider, an American football field or a soccer field. And by the way, that's soccer. At the same time, they'd also lean into Toy Story stuff. So they, put up a question like, who was Jesse's original owner in Toy Story 2? And you, of course, know who that was.
Who was it?
Emily.
Emily,
who lives on the side of the road with good
Emily.
will.
The Emily erasure will not stand on this episode.
There we go. But at the same time, they also try to sort of bring the players in a way that would appeal to kids. Like, for example, Evan Engram from the Jacksonville Jaguars, when it came time to share a stat from him, it was like, well, his favorite toy growing up, were Spider-Man action figures. But again, this is a tough Venn diagram to work Toy Story fans and football fans. And let's not forget about, you also have folks in the UK who were watching this who just don't care for, American football. So.
And they don't care about Toy Story either, Jim. They say, oh, look at this Toy Story. Don't give a twig about that, do we? Got other things to worry about over here, we do. No, did you see the Duke Kaboom? How was the Duke Kaboom halftime show?
The Duke Kaboom thing was actually pretty cool. I mean, now mind you, again, you had these weird sops to the fact that, all right, we have folks from the UK who are watching this. So, for example, when Duke Kaboom did his big motorcycle jump, it was over 5 toy-sized London double-decker buses, and more to the point, they created an element of suspense because evidently, evil Emperor Zurg was looking in and, was he going to do something to disrupt the jump? To circle back to try to make this work for the audience in the UK, I mean, there'd be these weird moments where you'd suddenly cut away to Bo Peep on the side of the field who is now playing soccer with her sheep. Or an attempt to, hey, kids at home, in the UK, it's like, how if somebody threw an especially long pass, it's like, why? That was almost 360 feet long, the height of Big Ben. And at the same time, they were trying to do the sort of, it's a football game, and so you eat food during a football game, and so Drew and Booger got their pizza delivered by the Pizza Planet truck. Again, they were trying. I have to say, not perfect. I mean, for example, sometimes players, when they were exiting the field, would literally walk through Slinky Dog, who, by the way, they could have put a little more time, a little more money into Slinky Dog's animation cycle. He was on camera quite a bit and had like 3 moves. On the other hand, there were fun little things where Woody and Buzz were being chased down the sidelines by Emperor Zurg, and they found ways to bring in even back catalog characters, like the Speak and Spell was there commenting on plays on the field.
Was Rocket Gibraltar there?
I looked. What was kind of interesting is they had the 2 plush characters from Toy Story 4, from the Carnival settle. In fact, what was kind of interesting, whenever they would throw a flag on a play, they had the same sort of animation for the Blue Rabbit.
Ducky and Bunny?
For Ducky and Bunny just did not seem to be into the game. I mean, it was sort of, they throw the flag down and you look at it with complete disinterest, like, what is this at my feet here? But anyway, and the other, I think the funniest part was that I want to say at one point it was either Booger or Drew, when there was a particularly stunning play late in the game, mentioned that, oh my God, that left the players gobsmacked. And they literally had to put up a card to explain what the word gobsmacked meant to Americans. It's just sort of like, it's overwhelmed with wonder, surprise, and shock.
Sounds like I was right to sleep in today, Jim. This is the impression I'm getting from all of this.
All right. Maybe you're not wrong. And
I'll look up clips. I'll look up my boy. I love Duke.
Well, now here's the interesting thing. Supposedly, as of tomorrow, Monday, October 2nd, again, we're recording this on Sunday, October 1st. This show, the Toy Story Funday Football, is supposed to be archived at both Disney Plus and ESPN. So the beauty part of it is it would be there and you can fast forward through parts.
Now that is interesting because, as you know, clips or rebroadcasts from NFL games are notoriously difficult to actually do because of rights issues. Maybe the animation of it all got around that?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Because again, what was kind of interesting is they literally, in the middle of the broadcast, did the very piece of boilerplate you just described, the fact of waving people off about, posting clips and that sort of thing. So I was intrigued as well. But going back to what you were saying earlier about how CBS and Nickelodeon have done this previously, I'm going to be kind of intrigued to see, on the heels of how Toy Story Funday Football is received, whether or not Disney circles back on this idea. And especially, remember, we're in this interesting time where, there's been a lot of talk about what's going to happen at Disney with legacy media and its various linear, television things. And given that both ABC and ESPN have been rumored to be up for sale, I'm going to be kind of intrigued to see if there's any further dalliance on this side of the street, and more to the point, which IP they might go with next time. Just throw that question out there. Is there any set of characters, Disney or Pixar, you'd want to see get the Funday Football treatment going forward? Anyway, and speaking of fun, Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which is hosted by Drew and his equally talented co-host, Charles Hood. You guys are coming up on kind of a really significant month for the latest Mission Impossible movie, Dead Reckoning Part 1, because it's a week from the day the show goes live. That would be Tuesday.
It'll be on digital.
Yeah. And then 3 weeks after that, the Blu-ray.
It'll be out on Halloween, the Blu-ray, which is great because we love that line that Angela Bassett says in Fallout when she says the IMF is Halloween. So the IMF is literally Halloween this year. We're so excited about that.
Well,
what?
Well, no, I have to ask, given that, again, digital on the 10th of this month and physical, Blu-ray at 31st, you gotta have some killer shows coming on Light the Fuse.
Yeah, we do. We have, I think, this week, we're in the middle of our 3-part Eddie Hamilton special, who's the editor of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and he edited Fallout as well as Top Gun Maverick. And he has some great stories. And what's great about that is that it actually ties into the home video release, because there's a great new special feature with him and Christopher McQuarrie talking about how they edited the movie. And there's a feature-length commentary track with McQuarrie and Eddie on the home video release. So just perfect. And also I encourage people to listen to our Charles Parnell episode, which we just put up. And it's all about his part in Dead Reckoning Part 1 as well as Maverick. So yeah, a lot of fun there.
That's the official Mission Impossible podcast there, folks. And speaking of podcasts, we have a few here at Jim Hill Media. We'd love you to check out. Again, we have, of course, Disney Dish I do with Len Testa. We have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams, who, by the way, has his own fun outside podcast, 32nd Street. We also have...
You ready for Loki, Jim?
That is dropping this week.
This week. I may or may not have seen the first 4 episodes, and I may or may not have had the time of my life watching them. They are so good. They are so fun. I'm sure I'm breaking a barrier or something.
No, but that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, good news. And also, well, again, the other thing that ends this week is we get the season finale, hopefully not the series finale for Ahsoka, and very much looking forward.
They're ending Ahsoka and starting Loki in the same week, almost like a real TV station that would actually have more than one show every 6 months that people want to watch.
I have to admit, I was kind of intrigued by that as well. I mean, it just was very unlike Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Anyway, also want to remind folks that coming soon, like maybe this week, Len and my new project, Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series, which we did in collaboration with veteran Imagineer Jim Schul, who spent 30 plus years at Walt Disney Imagineering, making some of your very favorite attractions for the park. So anyway, that's going to debut over on Patreon. So keep an eye out for that. See, beyond that, again, I so enjoy you on social media, Drew, but have you officially departed from Twitter at this point?
No, I'm still there, Jim. It's like being in an abusive relationship. I say I'm going to leave. And then makes me, a cake, and I have to stay even though I'm getting beat up. It's just bad. But I'm still there. Drew tailored, like a tailored shirt, everywhere.
Just like Mr. Taylor, I am still at Twitter and X. Also on Instagram is Jim Hill Media, and on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. And then finally, if you folks could do Drew and I a favor, if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and not just rate and review the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, but also if you could put in a good word for Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, that would be cool as well. And if you really like what you heard here today, you want to go over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that'd be cool. And I think that's gonna do it for this week. But yeah, again, just want to remind folks, as Drew mentioned early on, Matt Singer's, Opposable Thumbs.
Opposable Thumbs. It is great. Pre-order it. Yeah.
Okay, headed there now. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back soon.